Michelle with Balanced Health. And so today I just wanted to hop on here and do a quick video on the top reasons why I encounter when people are taking Ozempic or semaglutide or tirzapetide, or any of those, and not really being successful or not losing weight. The number one thing I always ask my patients is, what are you drinking? If you're a soda drinker or a sweet tea drinker or milk, things that have a lot of sugar, then it really makes those injections almost ineffective, because one of the main ways they work is by regulating your blood sugar. And so if you're just pumping sugar in all day, then they really are not able to work. So that's the number one thing I always ask people. If they are drinking those things, then if they can cut those out and switch to something with an artificial sweetener without calories, then usually the weight will start coming off. Another thing that I see as an issue is a high carb intake. And again, it boils down to sugar. Simple carbs, sweets, bread, those sorts of things, even fruit, a lot of those just straight to sugar. And if you're eating a lot of those high sugary content foods, same thing, it just works against those shots. I recommend that my patients keep their carb intake to 30 grams or less a day. And as far as sugar, as close to zero as possible, but really if you can keep it down to less than 30 grams is really a good goal. Also, another thing I see is if they're not getting enough protein. Protein is important for a lot of different things, but your body uses protein for nearly every process. We don't create proteins, we have to eat those. When we lose weight, we lose some muscle mass. There's just no getting around it, so we want to minimize that. So it's important that we take in enough protein. On the other hand, you can also have too much. So there's a fine line there. You want to have enough, but not too much. So that's something that I usually have people look at, see what they're getting as far as that. Another thing I ask is their supplements. One thing, I'm in Kentucky, and so in this area, patients are just low on D. That's the sunshine vitamin. We don't get enough sunshine. There's not enough for us to have levels that we should have. And so vitamin D is important for a lot of things, but it's also, a low level is linked to obesity. It's actually a pre-hormone. And so if it's low, then it can affect all our hormones. And a lot of times hormones are part of the equation as far as our weight goes. So if they're not taking a D supplement, then that's something that I usually recommend to my patients. Another something I see sometimes is maybe they started off pretty good and then now their weight's just stalled, and it seems to be more than just a plateau. And sometimes what that is because they're not eating enough. And I caution my patients on this because it's tempting. You're not hungry, you're taking the shot, you're not really that interested in food. So it's pretty easy to not eat a lot. But if you do that for very long, at first your body will drop weight, but then it's going to adjust by lowering your metabolism, and then you're not going to go anywhere. So sometimes it's that you're not eating enough. So you need to eat enough, and your weight loss needs to be slow. So if that's an issue, we look at that, and I'll have them decrease their dose of medication and increase their calorie intake. Another thing is activity. Now, exercise is not a huge part of weight loss. It's just not. It's mostly what we eat. But if you are someone who has a very active job, let's say you're a nurse and you worked on the floor and you're easily getting your 10,000 steps a day, and then you've switched to a desk job and now it's a struggle to get 2,000 steps a day, then that's definitely something you're going to need to adjust. So look at your activity level. If you've had some changes or you're really just not very active, you can maybe tweak that a little bit and see if that can get the scale moving again. Another thing that I see sometimes is just poor expectations. Some people think, I started this shot this week, by next week I should lose 10 pounds. And it just doesn't work that way, nor should it. You don't want your weight loss to be fast. If your weight loss is fast, you will not sustain it. It needs to be nice and slow. We almost have to trick our bodies. so that it doesn't fight against us. So it needs to be very slow. I tell my patients I for sure don't want them to lose any more than 2 pounds a week. That's maximum. Really, even a half a pound to a pound is really ideal, but for sure no more than 2 pounds a week. So a lot of it's expectations. I start my patients on a very small dose, and we just go up until their appetite's reduced, whatever that is for them. And so I think I have 1 or 2 patients on a maximum dose. No one else is even close to that. So it takes a little bit to get your dose up enough to reduce your appetite, and the scale's not going to move until the appetite's reduced. So sometimes it's just expectations. And then lastly, if nothing seems to be working, then I would suggest some labs to look at hormone levels. Lots of hormones can impact your weight, and so maybe there's something that needs to have some adjusting on that. And then studies show that about 10% of people just are non-responders. I don't typically see that. I don't think I see that big of a number in my patients, but that's what the studies show, that those people just, their dose is not enough to reduce their appetite. So I have for sure had a patient, one of my very first patients actually, and she just simply did not respond. What I do if someone doesn't seem to be responding is if they've been on semaglutide, then we'll try tirzapetide, and then vice versa. Kind of switch it around and see if we can get things to go. So hopefully that's helpful, and let me know if you have any questions about any of that below.